Meatballs are an amazing treat that you can often find sold by themselves, like so in Italy. This here is going to be a keto-friendly meatball recipe that you can easily follow. All you have to do is just continue watching this video. So to get started, we have our 3 herbs here. We have some basil, we have some parsley, and we have some cilantro. These 3 herbs right here are going to add a ton of flavor to the meatballs and to the sauce itself. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to separate some basil leaves, just like so, off the stems, and we're going to roll them up. Now, rolling up the leaves makes it a lot easier to cut, especially so you don't, hurt yourself. So we're going to cut off the ends because we don't want to use it. And here's where you're going to go as thick or as thin as you want. I'm going for as thin as I can get it. And you'll notice as I'm cutting, my cutting board is sliding. I didn't put enough water down on my paper towel when I got the paper towel wet to use as a break. So I kind of have to stop every now and then to make sure this is all cut up. So once we cut it in one direction, we're going to turn it sideways, and then we're going to cut it the other direction. And this is going to give us a nice dice. And then once we have a nice dice, we can go ahead, clean off the knife a little bit, scoop it up into a bowl. And once we put it into a bowl, we're going to basically repeat the exact same process with the parsley and the cilantro. We're going to separate some leaves from the stems, cut them up, dice them up real small, place them into a bowl. There's the parsley, there's the cilantro. And what we're doing is we're getting this ready for our sauce and the meatballs themselves. So once we have that in there, this is what it's going to look like. We're going to give it a nice little tossing to make sure everything is all mixed and coated. And this is going to go hang out in the fridge. So to get started with the sauce, we're going to use a shallot. And we're going to use a couple cloves of garlic here. And a can of San Marzano tomatoes that are crushed. I'm using canned because I don't have access to fresh homegrown San Marzanos. San Marzanos come from Italy and they're used just in a lot of Italian dishes. So to cut the shallot, we're going to do the same thing we do with onions. We're going to cut the stem off. We're going to cut it in half, root to stem. We're going to make some vertical cuts, horizontal cuts, and then we're going to dice it. I have found that this is quite possibly the easiest way of cutting a shallot and or cutting onions. It reduces tears. It really works. It's one of the most amazing things. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the other half of the shallot. Now we will be using this whole one shallot in the sauce. And when we put it in the pan to cook it, we're not really going to try to caramelize it. We're just trying to sweat it out a little bit and bring some of that flavor out. For the garlic, we're going to take our entire bulb here. We're going to separate 3 cloves, and then we're going to smash them with the side of the knife so that it makes it easier to peel. This way we can run it through the grinder. In a high-walled skillet, we're going to add a couple tablespoons of olive oil. We're going to add the shallots once there's enough little bit of heat going on in the pan. And we're going to let this simmer down and basically cook in some of the flavors. Cook out. Look at me. We're going to cook out, sweat it out, and just bring a lot of those flavors out. It's exactly what we want to do. So one whole shallot is going to go into this pan. Now, if you don't want to use a shallot, you can easily use an onion. It's really up to you. It's entirely dependent. Everything in cooking is all about flavor. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly how much of what. It's all on flavor. You either add a little or you add a lot. So we're going to let that cook down a bit. We're going to add our crushed garlic using a garlic press or a crusher. We're going to get that all floated in there. We're going to stir it around, bring this wonderful smells out. And then next we're going to add the whole can of crushed tomatoes. Once we have the tomatoes in there, we're going to add a little bit of salt. This is kosher salt. It's not table salt. This is kosher salt. And then we're going to add some of our Italian seasonings, which is the cilantro, the basil, and the parsley. You can add a little, add a lot. It's entirely up to you. And we're going to let this stir and cook in. And we're going to put it onto a low heat. And then for the meatballs, we're actually going to have to move this over to a back burner. That way we can use the front burner right here to make the meatballs. So go ahead and get everything all mixed in, stir it around, get it all in there. It's all good to go. Once it's all good to go and it's all in there, we're going to go ahead and put on a back burner and we're going to slide this around to the back burner. As we slide it over to the back burner, we're going to bring out our next skillet, which is what we're going to use to cook the meatballs. Now, the meatballs, pay attention, we are using a mixture here. This is 2 pounds of ground beef. This is a 90-10, which means it's 90% lean beef, 10% fat, which is exactly what we want to make it keto friendly. We're going to crush in some garlic. Once we have the garlic crushed in and it's in there, it's good to go. Next up, we're going to throw in a couple pinches of kosher salt. And we're going to follow it up with some freshly ground black pepper. Follow with some freshly grated Parmesan cheese, a couple squirts of olive oil, and 1 egg. And then we will add some more of our Italian seasonings that we cut up a little bit earlier. And then we're going to go ahead and mix this all around. Now, there's one final ingredient for these meatballs, and it's going to be freshly grated mozzarella cheese. Now, there's 2 ways you can get mozzarella cheese. You can get it in a block like how I have it here, and then you can run it through a box grater. If you're going to do that, you want to freeze or stick it in the freezer for about 10 minutes, or you can get pre-shredded. Once we have this in there, we're going to get it all mixed up. Just get it all mixed around. Make sure it's all good to go until we have a nice, good, big ball like here. And then we are going to start ripping off chunks into form meatballs. And you're going to want to hold the chunk of meat between your hands and just kind of rotate your hands in and around in a circular motion until you can create a ball. For this video here, I'm making 4 meatballs. So once we get 4 meatballs, we're going to go ahead and place them into the pan. And this is exactly what we want our meatballs to look like. So now that we have 4, we're going to go ahead and place these into a hot skillet. In the skillet is olive oil in the bottom. Once we have a little bit of heat, we're going to go ahead and transfer these over, and we're going to start the searing process. Now, as you sear meat, what you're doing is you're searing all the juices inside of the meat so that they don't cook out. Once we have the meatballs into the skillet, we're going to take a non-stick or a coated tongs, and we're basically going to make sure that they're loose. If they're loose, then you can flip them. If not, if they're still sticking to the pan, they're going to stick to the pan as you try to flip them. And we're just going to roll them over, and we're going to repeat this process until we have a nice dark brown color all the way around, as good as we can get it. And that's basically how we're going to sear and lock in those flavors. Once we have all the flavors locked in, everything's all nice and brown, as you can see in this video, we're going to move the skillet to the side, and we're going to bring our high-walled pan back over. And as we bring it over with the tomato sauce, it's been simmering on a low heat. We will then add the meatballs back to it, and we're going to finish the meatballs inside the tomato sauce. So just go ahead and place them in there any way that you want to put them in there. It doesn't matter. Mix them around, stir them around, get the sauce coated all over them. And now we are ready to check the temperature, and we're looking for about 140s, in the 140 range, which is, we're looking pretty good right here, 142. So I'll go ahead and call it done. And what we're going to do is we're going to plate this up onto a hot plate. Remember, hot food goes onto a hot plate. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them in a line. We're going to put one here. We're going to put another one right there. And then we'll put another one right there. And then we'll put another one right there. I'm going to push them together a little bit. And then we're going to douse these meatballs in the tomato sauce. This is where you can add a little bit or you can add a lot. It's entirely up to you. Once you have the sauce on there, you're going to hit it with some leftover garnish or the seasonings for garnish. And we're going to top it off with some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. I know this video is pretty quick. It's been a minute since I put out a video. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe, leave a comment below, maybe even a suggestion. I do plan on putting out some more videos. I'm just kind of mentally going through some things, so it's taken me a little bit. I'm not trying to use that as an excuse. I'm just letting you know why it's been a minute since I put out a video. But all the help is great. Share this video, like this video, comment on the video, as I've already said before. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And for those of you that are on a keto diet or keto-friendly diet, this is the end result. These meatballs, they are packed full of flavor. They melt in your mouth. They taste amazing. And the homemade sauce is possibly some of the best sauce you're ever going to see, aside from the junk that comes in the jar.